Okay, hello, what's going on? Cheers. So, the M4 MacBook Air. I want to talk about this thing since, honestly, it's been one of my main machines ever since it came out. Week number one, I picked this thing up, and I've only sort of grown more in love with this since it's come out. And amongst any of the Mac machines available at all, between, the MacBook Airs, Pros, Minis, I think this one's by far the easiest one to recommend. Now, in truth, this whole video is probably going to seem like a bit of a love letter to the M4 MacBook Air, mainly because there's just, for me, at least personally, such little to hate about it and so much to love. And honestly, this thing is nearly almost a perfect package for most people, whether you're a producer, a student, a creator like myself, or otherwise anybody who's just looking for a solid all-around laptop. Now, for reference, and the crazy thing is that I'm just using the bare bones base model, and even with that, it's been covering me for pretty much everything I need, whether that be, my evening courses for, my professional designation, editing videos, just vibing out, chilling, relaxing, watching media, movies, and TV shows and all that fun stuff. And surprisingly, yes, even a little bit of light gaming, which is pretty awesome. And it sort of goes beyond light gaming now, which is the best part about it. So yeah, I figured I would give a long-term review of the MacBook Air in a non-technical fashion, because I truly don't care to do benchmarks and all that fun stuff, but more so my experience with it and why I particularly love it. And while it's corny as hell, a lot of it just simply boils down to the portability of this thing and the balance between power and value that this MacBook gives, mainly because it allows me to sort of have more balance in my day-to-day, which has been sort of my mantra going into this entire year. So yeah, I really do appreciate the M4 MacBook Air for what it has to offer. But yeah, I do also want to give a huge thanks to Setapp for sponsoring a portion of today's video, but more on them in a bit. Now, as for why this MacBook is special whatsoever, a huge chunk of that comes down to a mix of personal reasons, as well as simply the engineering and the technology behind this flippin' MacBook. It's incredibly impressive, for me at least. The first thing I want to mention is sort of why it's called the MacBook Air, and that's going to be, the portability and the sheer size of this thing is absolutely incredible. But the main thing is that form factor doesn't sacrifice performance, which I absolutely love. And sure, I don't know, you could probably, pick up something like the M4 iPad Pro, and this thing is an awesome flippin' tablet, right? It is technically smaller than the M4 Air, but at the same time, this is still an iPad. It's still a tablet, and I've sort of talked about that in my previous reviews of this thing. As much as you can sort of replace a computer with this thing, it can't entirely, which is where something like the M4 MacBook Air comes in. And the crazy thing is that between those two devices is that the M4 Air in the base model configuration at least is, I think, cheaper than the M4 iPad Pro, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. Now, that said, this beautiful chunk of metal, because of its size and its portability, allows me to sort of be more present with my family. Now, that's not going to be the same for everybody, but it is one of the particular reasons I love about this thing. I'm not sacrificing the performance with the size and the portability of this machine. So when I do need to get things done, I'm able to just vibe out with my kids, my wife, and just chill out and actually get stuff done, which I absolutely love. Beyond that, in setups like this right here in my basement, I can set this thing up and it'll run my entire desk setup. I have this thing docked up to a dope-ass monitor, and I can do everything I need to do from a creation standpoint, work standpoint. It just handles everything in a desk setup. And the crazy part is the value aspect of this thing is that it's come down in price this year compared to the previous M3 and M2 models, all while doubling the RAM that you would typically get at the base model, which is absolutely insane. And the thing is too, going from, a base model spec of like 8 gigs of RAM up to 16 gigs, that makes a pretty significant difference when it comes down to heavier workflows, which has been mine for the last while. And while I loved my M2 MacBook Air, it was an incredible machine. The difference on the M4 chipset with the 16 gigs of RAM is absolutely bonkers. And I really do appreciate all that it has to offer with the improved performance. With that, it pretty much takes what was already a good laptop, if I'm completely honest, into an even more incredible experience overall. So I really dig that. So where I'd maybe typically have some issues with my videos that I would edit when a project would get a little bit longer, my M2 MacBook Air would sort of chug along a little bit with larger projects. And that's no longer the case with the M4 MacBook Air. Separately from that, again, this is more of a personal reason, but I've been using flipping dumb phones for like, I don't know, 8 months now? 7.5, 8 months. And this is an e-ink screen. It doesn't do much. This phone doesn't do much, which is why I use it in the first place. But when I do need to be a little bit more connected, just as I would, on my iPad or something, the MacBook allows me to access things like iMessage, FaceTime with the grandparents, when I'm with my kids and stuff, group chats. All the apps I could ever want are pretty much on my MacBook now, which is pretty awesome. So I really dig that. Again, that's more of a personal reason, but between my iPad and my MacBook Air, it wouldn't be as possible to use a dumb phone without those features. So I really do lean on those features on the daily. Now, with all this that I talk about is that the M4 Air sort of branches into being an anything and everything device, all while not specifically anchoring me to my desk setup, which I really love about it. And the wildest side effect of the increased performance and the increase in RAM is that Apple started sort of doubling down on improving Macs for gaming. And I'd say finally, maybe with this machine and of course the M4 Mac Mini and all that, it's sort of deviated away from just light gaming, and you can sort of actually game on here now as a main machine, which is not something I was particularly expecting out of this. And I will talk more about gaming on here. Now, as for what's on my Mac, of course, I'm going to talk about the gaming and editing like I mentioned, but I do want to give a huge thanks to Setapp for sponsoring a portion of today's video. Now, personally, I've been using Setapp for maybe 4 or 5 months at this point, and what it is, it's pretty much an all-in-one place where you can find a lot of actually good value-added apps all under one convenient subscription. The thing about Setapp is that it's not just, a random Apple or Android marketplace where you can get apps, but a lot of those apps have, bloatware and ads and all that stuff. None of that is present on any of the Setapp applications, and they actually are useful or value-added depending on what your workflow is. Now, the thing about finding apps through Setapp, it's easy enough. You can just, browse through the Setapp application, see what's available for you, and that's personally what I did. But they also do have curated packages where you can see what's available for specific workflows if that's something you're into. For myself, at least, I've sort of picked specific applications that I personally really love. One of which is called Bartender, which actually just keeps the top bars of my menus super clean. I can either just click and hide everything that's on my bar or have it all showing with just one singular click. Another app that I recently started using is something called Notch Nook, which pretty much takes what's otherwise a useless notch on the MacBook's display and makes it into this cute little hub that actually has some utility. In this case, I mainly use it for a quick glance at my calendar or reminders, or otherwise it's a good little widget to use for my music and such. And I do appreciate the added functionality here on a notch that I wouldn't otherwise be using. Otherwise, an app up here in my bar is actually something called iStats, which does allow me to sort of monitor the performance of my M4 Air while I'm, gaming or editing or doing anything of the sort, just so I can get an idea of how this machine is performing under whatever workload I currently have. But yeah, those are just a few of the applications I really appreciate through Setapp, and they do currently have an extended 30-day trial, and I will have a link down below in the video description. Thanks again to Setapp for sponsoring a portion of today's video. But getting back to the actual MacBook itself, I do want to talk about the build and design of this thing, because as with any Apple product, it's pretty much going to be unbeaten by anything on the market, if I'm completely honest, which sort of makes me sound like a fanboy, but they just do it right. For myself, I did end up going with the 13-inch MacBook Air, mainly because, again, the primary thing I want this for is going to be the portability factor, and the 13-inch seems to be the perfect size for me. And for the first time, I did end up going with one of the lighter colorways. I typically only ever get, space gray or space black or something, but I did end up going for the sky blue. I will say it sort of looks blue depending on the lighting that you're in, but otherwise I do think it looks pretty sweet, and it's just a nice change of pace having a lighter finish on my MacBook Air. So I really do dig the sky blue. As for ports, honestly, it's fine. It is a little bit limiting. There are 2 Thunderbolt ports on here, which are perfectly fine whenever I'm docked here at my desk setup, really, because I do have a specific dock that I can add my peripherals in if I need to use an SD card or if I need any sort of USB dongles or whatever. I do have my dock for that. Other than that, I will be living that dongle life specifically for an SD card when I am out and about with my MacBook Air. One of the things I've talked about many times across a lot of different devices at this point is the headphone jack on, the M4 Mac Mini, the MacBook Pros, and the MacBook Air. Honestly, it is so easy to forget how good media sounds when you're actually plugged in directly, and I really flip and love it. I've been using in-ear monitors for a while, and again, this is probably like the 4th or 5th time I've talked about these things, mainly because I really dig using in-ear monitors now whenever I'm working or gaming or editing, whatever the case may be. And the crazy thing is, it's not even just in-ear monitors. I forgot how good normal earpods sound. These are like the cheapest, most available earbuds ever. And these actually sound really flippin' good, and I forgot how good they sound. They're also incredibly comfortable in the ear. I don't know, I'm so used to having, rubber seals between my AirPods and IEMs, or otherwise some honking headphones. So I forgot how easy and simple and good that normal earpods sound. But yeah, really dig the earpods. Beyond that, of course, when it comes down to the MacBook Air, and this goes in hand with pretty much any of the Apple MacBooks, is that they're pretty much undefeated when it comes down to the quality of the trackpad. Between the haptic feedbacks when you're pressing on it, the gestures, the swiping, everything about the trackpad is literally 10 out of 10. And I don't think I'll ever find another laptop that has a better trackpad. And I really do dig it on the M4 Air. Usually when you're using a laptop on the go and you're actually doing, real work while portable, typically laptops feel pretty shitty when you're using them based off of their keyboard or trackpad. And the MacBooks are pretty much one of the few machines that I can use portable that doesn't feel half bad while actually editing on the go or something. So I really do dig the trackpad and the keyboard on here. Plus Touch ID. Touch ID is one of those things where it's so flippin' useful. I ended up buying just a normal Magic Keyboard because of how much I love Touch ID. So yeah, one of those sleeper things I wasn't expecting to love as much as I do, flippin' Touch ID. Now, separate from the build and design, one of the things I really dig on this laptop is the sheer performance of it. And again, that's something I wasn't particularly expecting when getting it. I knew that, double the RAM and the M4 chip, naturally the M4 is gonna be better than the M3 and the M2 and all that. But I just wasn't expecting it to be as good as it is. For myself, I edit a lot of different projects. Some of them are gonna range from 8 minutes to 10 minutes. Some of them are gonna be, 24 minutes. And this M4 Air has handled all of it. Likewise, and I don't think I've talked about this in the past, I'm one of those weirdos that edits in 2 times speed. So imagine watching something in fast forward. I edit at 2 times speed, and this MacBook rarely drops frames if I'm working with 4K footage. Now, the only time that it does sort of hiccup a little bit is when I'm using my Fuji camera shooting in open gate, where I'm shooting in 6.2K open gate footage. If you do the math on the pixels, and I've mentioned this before as well, is that the pixels on OpenGate is about 3 times the pixel count of a normal 4K timeline. So that's the only time that I find this MacBook hiccups, and only then it's if a project hits maybe 12 minutes and up will it shutter a little bit with 6K OpenGate footage. So again, performance-wise, I simply was not expecting that out of the M4 Air. And this thing doesn't even have a flippin' fan, so this is passively cooled, which is bonkers. Still, again, whenever I'm docked at my system here, I'm using a 4K 240 Hertz OLED with my MacBook, and it works incredibly well, particularly when I am color grading and whatnot. This display will be a little bit better than the display built into the MacBook, which I'll talk about. That is by no means a bad display. It does incredibly well. And when I am editing on the go, I'm still perfectly comfortable doing any sort of color grading on the built-in screen. So yeah, that does an incredible job, especially while docked in this setup. Again, I'd say the main downside with the base model is the built-in storage. 256 gigs really isn't a lot. It really isn't. Every single one of my current projects is over the built-in storage on here. Because of that, I'm using this SSD, which I can plug in through the Thunderbolt port. It works incredibly well. It's super flippin' fast. But I have to buy this, which is actually probably cheaper than buying built-in storage. So yeah, this is something that you might need if you're considering the base model. It's probably also cheaper, but if you want the convenience of having built-in storage, I mean, go for it if you want to spend on it. Otherwise, again, that works perfectly well. And fun fact, you can actually play games off of SSDs. I only learned that really recently when it comes down to Mac. You can install games on an external SSD and play off of that external SSD if it's fast enough. With that, I do want to talk about gaming because this sort of goes back to the performance of this thing between the 16 gigs of RAM and the M4 chipset, is that this thing can actually game now. Not just, light gaming like people typically talk about when they're mentioning Macs at all. For myself, I have been throwing down a good amount of World of Warcraft on this thing. In my original review, I asked you guys to talk me out of playing World of Warcraft, and you guys did an awful job. So naturally, I'm playing World of Warcraft. For the first time ever though, I am playing casually, and I have happily thrown down some World of Warcraft on the M4 MacBook Air, even in this setup on my 4K screen, and it does incredibly well. Of course, naturally, it is not going to perform as good as my mini PC or my main PC, but it does a damn good job for what this thing is. And again, if I'm off of my desk setup, off my monitor, I can still play World of Warcraft, which is the craziest thing about it. One of the things I have done going forward, at least, is I end up getting this walking pad. I'll leave a little clip here of me using it. I'm only allowed playing World of Warcraft or games in general if I'm on this flippin' walking pad. So we'll see how that goes over the next month or so and see if I actually cut down any weight. But that's just one of the things that I've been recently trying to do to sort of find a better balance with my time constraints. If I'm going to relax, I'm going to try and work out at the same time, if that makes any sense at all. But again, that is completely irrelevant to the MacBook. Figured I would share that. But if you ever thought about it, get yourself a walking pad. It really is a good time. Still, separately from that, there are a ever-growing list of native games on the Mac operating system, which I flip and love, finally. There's the new Assassin's Creed out. I haven't even tried it yet, if I'm completely honest, mainly because I've been happy what I have been playing with. Beyond that, I play a lot of games on console. I have my PlayStation 5 Pro here. Really, that's going to be what I'm gaming more on. But if I do want a game on here, it has still been a good time. Some of the games I've been playing on here has been Life Goes On. I've had some people ask me about that game in my original review. It's just a cute little platformer where you jump and use your own dead bodies to get through puzzles, as morbid as that sounds, but it is a really good time. The later levels are incredibly hard. But yeah, that game has always been one of my go-tos on any sort of Mac system, just because it's silly fun, if I'm completely honest. Other than that, of course, Apple Arcade, if you have, an Apple Arcade subscription, or if you're using Apple One or something, one of my go-tos has always been Balatro, which is available on, iPad, iPhone, but I like to primarily play it between iPad and on my Mac. And Balatro is just addicting, stupid fun. I've never played poker in my entire life, and I never even learned what the hands are. I still don't know much about poker, but playing Balatro on the MacBook has been a good time, and it runs incredibly well naturally. It's not that demanding of a game. Where it's sort of cheating and it comes down to gaming is Microsoft Game Pass. And I have talked about Game Pass. Honestly, I feel like a walking billboard when it comes down to Game Pass, but it's just one of those services that I don't think I'll ever not use because of the value between, I have an Xbox and I love playing Game Pass games, but I can stream the games directly to my M4 MacBook Air, and it does incredibly well. And it's just one of those things where if I'm not playing anything that requires a huge amount of reaction time or anything like that, it works very well on a MacBook. And if I'm just vibing out, chilling, playing games, watching shows on my TV, I can still play games at the same time if I really want to. And that's just some of the things that I've started to enjoy in my evenings. So kudos to the MacBook Air and kudos to Game Pass. Beyond that, there's only a couple more things really that sort of stand out on the MacBook, and that's going to be the speakers and the display. The speakers are just impressive considering the size of this thing. Again, I have, my whole setup here. My monitor has a built-in speaker. I'm not really out and about blasting music, really, if I'm completely honest. Otherwise, again, I'm using my ear pods or my IEMs or something. But the speaker on here is excellent, and it's just something that I wasn't expecting for the size of this thing. And you won't be disappointed with the speakers is all I can say. They work well and they do the damn job. But the display, again, when it comes down to editing on the go or watching any sort of shows or media, the display on here does get plenty bright and it just simply looks good. Again, I'm not particularly somebody who calibrates or monitors or changes settings for their displays and stuff. I just appreciate this thing right out of the box, and it does the damn good job. For myself, the screen is mainly going to be, again, any sort of editing or color grading when I'm on the go, watching any sort of shows or movie, which is something that I've been trying to do a little bit more of as of recently. Or otherwise, if I'm just trying to slow down and browse the web and just be an absolute degenerate and do nothing, the MacBook does incredibly well. If I'm just, vibing out, chilling on the couch or in bed or something, it's just a good old reliable display. Now with all this, the MacBook Air, again, this sounds like a fanboy love letter to the MacBook Air, but it just sort of fits everything in my day-to-day, and I think I might be the perfect demographic for this machine, which is why I love it so much, and there's very little to hate about it apart from, the shitty storage with the base model, which really isn't that big a deal for me, at least. I don't know, between the portability and the sheer power of this thing, it opens up a lot for me and other opportunities to sort of do other things while still having this available to me for when I need it. Again, when I'm just chilling out with my family, my kids, of course I want to be present. Naturally, of course, I don't want my face stuck in a screen. But if I got things to do, again, I have my evening courses, or if I have a project deadline to get done, I can still be present with my family and get those things done in a reasonable amount of time. And this, again, performs incredibly well, even off of battery. The versatility of that machine adds up to these intangible values that you can't particularly put a metric on. You can't put a benchmark to those specifically. But for me, again, this MacBook just works so damn well in my lifestyle that I've just fallen in love with it even more since I purchased it. And quickly, I do got to mention as well is that the older M3, M2, and M1 chips still exist. And those actually might be cheaper than the base model M4. Despite the value this thing has, if you find those used or refurbished, they probably will be cheaper. And for the majority of people just doing light work, web browsing, assignments and all that fun stuff, those are probably going to be the better value in this scenario. That said, for anybody looking for a new machine or anybody who does have a slightly heavier workflow, I don't think there's going to be anything better apart from the M4 Air if you need portability, and it's easy to recommend. But yeah, there's my fanboy love letter to the M4 MacBook Air. It allows me to be more present with my family. It allows me to chill when I really need to chill, but also gives me the availability to be productive when I need to. And I really dig that machine. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about the M4 MacBook Air. It really is my favorite piece of tech of 2025, I think, so far. If you have any questions, leave them down below. And yeah, thanks again to Setapp for sponsoring a portion of today's video. Link down below in the description if you do want to check it out. I appreciate you watching till the end. Until next time.